Members of Axis of Love kind of have already selected to support the MCLR just on the basis of, if you go to the very bottom and it says vetting process, I think that speaks really loudly as to why we support, you know, what we support. But Mike, if you want to.
So I know some of you, but I don't know all of you. Maybe I should start with just a brief introduction. I've been in the cannabis industry for 48 years. I got an Ivy League education and 3 advanced degrees. I've been trying to distribute more better stuff to more people at a fair price in my entire career. I'm one of the founding members of the Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform, and I'm co-chair of the Growers Outreach Committee in that group. I've been aboard with the MCLR, the Marijuana Control Legalization Revenue Act, since it was an idea that then evolved into the largest open source effort to get people's input. We have a real priority belief that the unity in the community that's been lacking has caused us to suffer the divide and conquer success of our opponents for years, and that until we can build a solid coalition in the entire community, we're going to end up going about this in a piecemeal, stepwise fashion that could go for decades, frankly, in 2-year cycles based on the elections. I want to be candid and say I'm not one of the Pollyannas that believe this is the answer and this is everything that we want and this is where we're going to go. This is a bill that is satisfactory to most, ideal for few, and not universally accepted by any. So I will say, therefore,
You mean it's legislation?
It's a successful compromise between what we think are the interests of the entire community. So our tent is big enough, so we're taking in a lot of, you heard me talk earlier, patient consumer feedback. We're also looking at the supply side, the producers, the growers, the concentrators, the bakers, the transporters. And we're looking at a program that includes not only industrial hemp, but continued medical marijuana, distinct and separate from adult use. So with that in mind, this document was put up and literally thousands of people had the opportunity to read it and comment on it and redline it and edit it and send it back. And the responses were all either integrated or used to revise and modify the existing language, or were vetted by the legal beagles that were working with us as already covered by this section, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've come up with something that I think is actually going to work. And the compare and contrast with the other initiative efforts that are currently out there, as Shauna indicated, they don't include Ed Rosenthal's initiative, which is, I think, going to be filed today. And there's also a Graham Boyd initiative that isn't reflected in here, that's kind of in the wings and kind of threatening to come out, or maybe not.
Does Ed Rosenthal's initiative really include the ABCs?
Yes.
I can't believe they got him to do that.
So I'm not really, insofar as my goal is unity building and outreach, frankly, I'm not here to talk negatively about any of the other proposals. I'm here to talk positively about the MCLR. And you'll see this comparison chart is set up just to give people a quick reference to the differences between the different initiatives. And
who's
with
behind it?
With that, I'm willing to entertain questions and want to let you know overtly, you know, my purpose for being here is to hear what you have to say, to enlist your support, and to hopefully help you organize locally to support this bill.
I have a question, and it just, you know, and I'm not a big, you know, accountant person, but I noticed that the CRTM has 25% plus sales tax on medical and adult, and I see in the MCLR, it has no tax for medical and a tax for adult, and obviously that did get through the legislative analysis office at the state level, so that means that it is legal to do that, correct?
Correct. That's correct. The answer to that question is yes.
Cool.
Yes, we want to not tax medicine at all, and we want to set a 10% over sales tax limit on what the state can collect for cannabis specifically. And we target that use of those monies, as well as the fees and licensing fees collected, to first administer the program, and then the overage to be distributed back into education, health, research, community support. One thing I want to point out, because the growing part of it is dear to my heart, is that with this $5,000 per year, in our proposal, with a $5,000 per year license to become a commercial grower, you will be, and our limitations are based on canopy size. So we're talking about the diameter of the plant, not the size of the garden. The diameter of the plant times pi r squared gives you the square footage of that plant. And you can have, in this model, for every 1,000 square feet of canopy, you pay an annual fee of $150. And you can get multiples of those for as big as your grow.
1,000 square feet or 100 square feet?
Per 100 square feet,
Okay.
it will be $150. So for 1,000 square feet,
Gotcha.
it would be $1,500. And there's no limitation on the number of thousands of square feet that can entail, although we do have some environmental guideline criteria for best practices.
I have a question about, when I look at this, something that jumps out to me just from personal experience and having, friends that are parents and grandparents, it's kind of scary to me that, the larger, or both, one's unclear and one has no protection for parents, and the argument that I heard originally was like, oh, you can't do that in a state ballot, but obviously we can, and I'm just really overjoyed to be on the team that has something for parents.
I agree.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I was happy about that too.
Yeah, thank you. We one of the things that unfortunately we ran into, I was real strong about getting nonviolent marijuana offender prison release as a part of our initiative. And that was an area, unfortunately, we ran into. The legislative analyst office says, we can only have a single issue initiative here. You'll need a different initiative, a separate initiative that looks just at penal reform as the main focus of that. That we can't actually file one initiative that directs both elected officials and appointed officials in the state in their behavior. So we have to come up with that as a separate, I would suggest, follow-up initiative. But that was one thing that I really pushed hard for right up until the very end, when finally it came down to the legal people said, nah, you can't do this. It's just, it's not going to fly. So I immediately said, well, we need to write 2 initiatives, right? We need to put them both out there. We need to choose both of them at the same time. This is important for our industry, right? But at this point in time, I only have a certain resources to apply to this whole process. And the idea of coming up with the extra millions of dollars to do that as well at the same time seemed to be self-defeating.
But yet we're able to protect parental rights going forward, correct?
Correct.
Which is very important.
Yes.
Yeah, it's happening every day. They still, take their kids away for growth.
And I know Jennifer's been working on some
Yeah.
child custody issues and state
That's horrible.
issues
Neighbors still
regarding
call
this
you
as
out.
well.
And they like to take the young children too.
Yeah, it's like
I-
$35 back.
I've heard of raves on, the same block, and they'll leave the 9, 10-year-olds, and they take the 2-year-olds, and they can be adopted out, and the county's making money.
Yeah. Right on.
I know.
That's not like.
You got it.
Right,
Disgusting.
the state.
So I think,
Anyway.
I also want to point out, one of the principles in the drafting of this initiative was that we realized that, we're asking for licensing, we're asking for registration, we're asking for people to come out of the closet to some extent and identify themselves and their involvement in our industry. And that we're not going to get the kind of compliance that we need unless we come up with guidelines that they can actually live within. And so, to some extent, we all realize there's a trade-off here between how many people we can entice to become declared cannabis industry professionals, if you will, right? Unless we can stretch the legal umbrella that embraces them to cover their operations. So it's a balancing act that we're doing here, and I'm not so naive, as I said at the beginning, as to believe that I personally won't be back here in 2016 and 2018 and 2020, still revising and still modifying and still using our experience that we gain as we move forward to come up with a more realistic working model in the future. But I suggest to you, this is a great step forward. And if we can get the signatures, if we raise the funds, get the signatures, get the votes, the polls indicate we're ready for this. We're ready for this to happen. Our population is ready for it. But unfortunately, I have to be straightforward and say our industry is notoriously poor at raising funds from within our industry. It just does not happen. No matter, if everybody gave $4.20, we'd have them, if everybody that's consuming cannabis in the state of California gave $4.20, we'd have enough to do initiatives for the next 3 years, okay? But that's not the way it works. So, if any of you know people that have money, if you're 2 or 3 degrees of separation away from somebody that has compassion and is familiar with dancing with Mary and would like everybody to have that opportunity, now's the time to reach out to them and say, for a contribution, you can help change the world. You can help change our culture. We can make it legal in California. The state of Colorado announced, that they were proud to have 118,000 registered medical marijuana patients in the state of Colorado. They finally got 118,000 to sign up and declare that they're medical marijuana patients. And I was moderating the Better Business Practices panel at the Emerald Cup this last weekend with Steve D'Angelo on the panel, and I turned to Steve and said, with that statement, so Steve, how many patients do you have over at Harborside? Right? He has 132,000 patients in his one dispensary there, right? So us looking at the model that's come out of Washington and Colorado, right, and trying to apply it to the state of California, puts us in a position where we're looking backwards, folks. That's the tail, we're the dog, right? And to the extent that they've gone ahead with their initiatives and gotten legal adult use, frankly, I don't think that will work here. In fact, I know it won't work here, not here in the state of California. Yeah.
It's a much
So-
different place here.
So, yeah, we have a magnitude bigger problem, and on top of that, realistically, folks, if you're in this industry, you know that we grow the most and the best marijuana in the world in the state of California. And we will always have that precedent role in this industry, no matter what happens with legalization as we evolve and as it changes. We will always be a supply state. We will always be a production state. We will always be a state where we take pride in having a leadership role in this industry. And to the extent that we may have lost some of the momentum with legalization in other states, I implore you, now is the time for us to show the rest of the country that we can do it right here in California. And we can do it so that it works for the growers, and it works for the patients, and it works for the dispensary owners, and it works for the concentrators, and it works for Joe Citizen, soccer mom out there who doesn't want to use marijuana and doesn't want her underage children using marijuana. And we can get support from all those communities in this initiative if we work together.
Yeah, we definitely get need to get back to taking the lead, because the news reports yesterday on national news said that adult abuse of tobacco, alcohol, and hard drugs and prescription drugs had, for news reports just came in, had gone down, while the use of young adults for marijuana had gone up. And it seems like there's this shift finally being noticed that the society is going toward marijuana and dropping off the tobacco, dropping off the alcohol, and dropping off the other substances and stuff. And so we can't be left in the dirt when I think California's whole thing with marijuana is what started the whole effect on the nation, you know, so.
And I also think, I mean, it's, looking at these other two initiatives, it's completely clear to me which is the best to choose from. I think that, you know, the one that the DPA did here, I mean, it's pretty much modeled on the Washington State model. And there are so many problems with that. They're already looking in Washington at changing the law, saying that you can't even grow, you know, for personal use. So they're already realizing, I heard, yeah, a couple days ago. Yeah, so, you know, they're already seeing that they have to amend these things. So I think we could take the lead and learn from their mistakes and have a really good law that protects everyone.
Companies have all of their permits and paperwork and all just ready to pounce
The name.
on legalization, and also the pharmaceutical companies. Because before 1934, there was like most of the pharmaceuticals in the United States were made out of cannabis. And they still have, because we tried to get something licensed through the federal government, the honey bun that my husband invented. And we could not get it because it was an illegal substance. But one thing the lawyer did tell us is that all the pharmaceutical companies, they have kept up all
Their patents.
of their patents.
And they have
So-
bought up, the tobacco companies have bought up
Yeah,
so much land, I've heard.
So for this last one, the DPA, it's totally done.
All the grapes are gonna get pulled.
Who do they work with?
Up and up.
Well, when I see on here, one of the most alarming things to me I've been digesting this chart for the last 48 hours. One of the proponents, Dave Hodges, came and visited AxisOfLove with us, and one of the things that really strikes me is that both of the community-based or more community-based initiatives do not allow total bans, and then there's a total ban allowed in the last column, and then right underneath that is, you know, the grow limits, and then all of a sudden, this is lower than what our state government allows us, not more than 4 plants grown at a single home residence. Like, those right next to each other, I kept like rereading that and going, really? Really? 4 plants at a single home residence? Like, who would agree to that except,
Somebody that doesn't grow marijuana.
yeah.
Yes, not us. Someone, not us.
Yeah, that's
That's
terrible,
it.
a law,
So I guess the not us
doesn't work.
really became very clear to me with this chart. I was like, okay, like the middle column, it just confuses me, right? I have to admit that, like even in the point where, you know, you get to a regulation structure, one creates an independent commission, one goes for the ABC, and then there's one created by the legislator, and that confused me on their initiative because I thought the whole point of a voter ballot was that we wanted.
The legislator out of it?
Yeah.
Well, to do more than the
I'm so
legislature would
confused by
do,
that.
yes, exactly, to keep it out of it. And if they can point people onto the commission, then they still have control
Right.
of the industry.
Well, we
right?
all know what legislation looks like when it goes in, and then when it comes back out, it's a bastard child, you know?
This is a total
Also,
Frankenstein.
since there's a lot of business owners here, I'd also want to do a shout out for the California Cannabis Industry Association, CCIA. Okay, this is a group with Nate Bradley, still with LEAP. and Sean Donahoe and Lakeisha Jenkins, headquartered in Sacramento, and a real top-notch lobbying group for our industry. I'm one of the founding members of that group. They've already had a couple of events at the state capitol where they invite new legislators into an event and do a whole education with them about our industry. They also got us positioned with a booth at an event that was, 170 different industries. There was the Winery Association, and the Realty Association, the Teachers Association, and the Nurses Association. And there's the California Cannabis Industry Association, right up there with all the rest of it.
Brendan was just talking about the CCIA. He was saying it's a good organization. Brendan Hallinan I worked with for a while, and just to let you know, he just read this initiative and he's on board.
Oh,
this
great,
week, so.
great. Well, everybody who reads it and wants to endorse it or support it or whatnot can go on the website and do that, and post something, it'd be appreciated. And, at some point, if you want to be supportive and helpful, we're thinking about putting donor buckets out in dispensaries with just a bucket and a symbol, and support the MCLR. Right, put in $1, put in $3, ask your bud tenders, do you want to donate your change to the cause today? Ask people, think for a minute about all cannabis has done for you. We're going to give you a unique opportunity here today to do something for cannabis. Reach in your pocket and put something in this bucket. Thank you very much. Right.
So the buckets are really cute. We just got ours. It's like a little paint can, We're gonna be, starting tomorrow, we'll be out in front. We're positioned between two different dispensaries, so we think we'll be pretty good at, and our first push is just to get this chart out there, because I just think that this is such a great tool. We're like, what am I gonna support? Right?
No, I'll take 2 of those buckets for dispensaries.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
definitely.
it.
Back to Nate and Sean O'Donohue. What are they actually doing? 'Cause I know Nate,
California Cannabis Industry Association.
right?
And what they're doing, we just had another organizational meeting in Santa Rosa in conjunction with the Emerald Cup.
That was around 10:30 in the morning.
Yes, sir.
You didn't go.
We didn't make.
No.
It was a pretty good breakfast. It was a pretty good breakfast.
Oh, we were at the lunches, we just.
And if you'd gotten there when I was, we would have had fun.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's that group and that's that meeting, and one of the reasons you were invited to it was because you're the kind of business.
Well, I have a conference called 6 with Sean O'Donohue, right, through Ed Breslin. And I'm like, for what? Who? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so now I know, he didn't tell me what about, so now I know what it's about.
Well, and Ed with the extract, yeah, he's,
With the external.
yeah, with external, he's a member, and yeah, was there at the breakfast you missed.
So I've looked a little bit at the website and just who's posted as members, and I saw one San Francisco component that I know, which was Bassa, and then I saw like Harborside and some of the big names, but I didn't see a lot of more small businesses. Is there going to be sort of a branch of that represents the small to mid-size?
I could have more together.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think we're, well, certainly not as well funded, and we're certainly not as well organized as some other political groups that I've been a member of. So, I don't see us breaking up committees to address the needs of individuals and constituency groups. I see us as trying to bring everybody in, both as an organization and as an individual, into supporting it. So,
Right, but it's a retailers group, correct?
MCLR?
No, the business.
CCIA?
The Business
Yeah,
Association
yeah,
is for retailers.
yeah. I'm sorry, I was talking about 2 different things. Yes, CCIA is definitely a business-oriented meeting, right?
You know what, San Francisco, there's 22 of us or whatever, and you can't get 3 dispensary people in the same room.
But we did today.
No, but what I'm saying is we should be all joined together coming in here And
That's the
I-
problem with
You know,
in our community, I think.
But some people don't want that because of competitive business interest. I mean, even when we
There's
were
plenty
putting.
for everybody, it's just.
I know, but you'll have the plenty for everybody and the good, conscious, compassionate policy group, and you're gonna have the other group as well.
But we don't even have a voice.
On the 13th of this month, we had another 2014 ballot initiative filed, which is awesome. And this is the Save Cannabis ballot initiative that was created open source and had over 1,000 different advocates, including myself, putting language in. There is language in there regarding compassionate care, which is a first. Compassionate care meaning providers that help low-income and no-income and veterans and the elderly access their medicine. And today we were hit with sort of publicity grab from the 2016 crowd. So I'd like to kind of, put it out there that for humanitarian concerns, waiting for 2016. Okay, so CPS has your child, wait till 2016. You're sitting in jail, oh well, too bad. The lobbyists want to make more money through the next 2 years, kind of sorting through how they want to approach legalization when we have two fantastic ballot measures. And I really encourage people to get out there and start screaming no on 16 and yes on 14. It's really ridiculous. I'm appalled by people thinking that the lobbyists should decide how we move ahead and not the people.
Well, won't the ballot initiative actually override whatever comes out of the assembly?
Well, I think the ballot initiative will, it will definitely be a remedy to whatever comes out of the assembly this year in January. I'm sure they're going to go again for their course of monopoly through Tom Amiano, and hopefully one of the two ballot measures will pass and destabilize that effort. But meanwhile, I think having the task force for 2016 come out with all of this today is a real kind of it's a punch in the face, and it's a pushback on the real activists and the people that really cared to put together a ballot initiative for 2014. And while they may not be upfront about really the lobbyists lobbying against the will of the voters and the patients and the providers of California to get this done in 2014, it's kind of a pushback on our own people, in that sense. And Gavin Newsom was just recently decided to be for legalization. Many years he spent saying that he was only for medical cannabis, and I'm glad his tune has changed. Lobbyists, have money and ways of making that happen, and that's great that they made that happen. But 2014 is the right choice for civil rights.